only thing that had happened is that I was illegally blocked from traveling by Judge Gerald Warren. And all of a sudden, they're being threatened. My elderly grandparents that I'm staying with are being threatened. And Jay knew that this was a big deal, or he wouldn't have given me the envelope and looked at me like he couldn't believe it himself. And so then I opened it and looked at it, and I could not believe it. And then I thought, I cannot believe that they're crossing over me, and I'm the person they're supposed to talk to in this litigation, not my grandparents. And they're basically trying to intimidate, threaten, and harass my elderly grandparents to keep me, to try to do something to shut me down and keep me out of these lawsuits. And so when I saw that, I took it, I sent them an email and sent the law firm an email, and I said, you have crossed the line. I cannot believe that you sent my grandparents a letter threatening them, and they didn't want me to know that they had sent this to my grandparents because they hadn't put in any kind of a return address in the envelope. I mean, it was like gangster. It was so gangster. It was the most gangster thing that I've ever seen. That letter was the closest thing to mafia, to intercepting a mafia transmission that I have ever seen in my life. So that is the law firm of Bullivant Hauser Bailey, and they have a lot of money. They have many branches in the United States. They have a lot of money, and they've done some criminal things. And in fact, that letter, that kind of a letter, is a crime. Sending that sort of a letter and threat is, it rises to the occasion of committing a felony. It's a federal crime. I don't know if there's a state law that prohibits such a thing, but there is a federal law that specifically prohibits such a thing. And I think it's punishable up to 10 years in jail. So I said I cannot believe, I don't think they ever expected me to get that, to have it intercepted and to have me see it. I don't believe that they ever thought that that was going to happen. And when it did, they had a knee-jerk reaction, and I said I am going to be filing an anti-harassment order against you for doing that to my grandparents. And it was stupid for me to tell them this instead of just going to the courthouse and filing for the anti-harassment. But I was so shocked that I sent them this notice. I mean, I was so shocked that they did this to my grandparents. I was warning them to back off and don't do that again. And then I was going to file this anti-harassment order against them. And what I found out happened is that about a half an hour to an hour after I sent the fax, according to the fax time and date, or the email, according to my email, the time on my email, and then the time on their fax to Judge Gerald Warren's chambers. It was about a half an hour to an hour after I sent this. They responded by going to this judge who they already knew was willing to commit crimes against me. And they told Judge Gerald Warren that they wanted a restraining order or anti-harassment order against me. And I hadn't done anything. And so there was a hearing set up where I had to appear to defend myself for this anti-harassment / restraining order against me. And I could have defended myself had I not then been assaulted even worse with migraines. And at that point, when I was being tortured with the migraines, in addition to having this law firm do such a thing after they had committed a crime of doing this to my grandparents, I had a suicide attempt. And because of the suicide attempt, I wasn't able to show up for that hearing to contest what they had done. So they basically won on every level. They won their anti-harassment order against me, which made me look bad, and I wasn't even able to get into the record a anti-harassment against them for committing a felony. So after they did that, they did one criminal thing after the other. So all of a sudden you have all these federal employees and other adversaries that are connected, and they are really working hard to cover up their crimes, because they commit so many crimes, a certain number of crimes, and then it's a game of covering up those crimes. So it was criminal activity it was cover up after cover up. They committed more crimes in covering things up than their original crimes amounted to. Although I have to say, implanting someone with microchips and then assaulting them, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, even cover-ups, I don't know if that can even cover up for the initial crimes of what they did. So it became this this cover-up and conspiracy that was rolling out of control, because the more they did and the more people that they involved in colluding against me and committing crimes against not just me but my family and threatening them, the larger their risks and liabilities were getting. And so therefore they needed more people, and they needed to be more violent, and they felt that they needed to spend more money on some of these things that they were doing. So then at that point they tipped it on over to extreme and serious. I actually became pregnant, so they laid off for a little while, but not before they had me go to jail on false charges first, because they needed me to look like I was a criminal. And then after I had my son, they tipped it on over to full-blown torture every single day, because how else could they control me and try to make me look crazy when I wasn't? And when they were a lot of them were guilty and could have gone to jail for over 20 years apiece, each. And so the next thing that they did after I had the suicide attempt was when I was going to appeal this anti-harassment order against me and try to prove what they had done to my grandparents. And when I started asking more insistently for FOIA from the FBI, and when I found out that actually the FBI had committed crimes, not just little misdemeanors, I realized, well, then that's when I tried to get the media involved, and I had finally a reporter who's going to take my story, and then I was set up by police to go to jail for a false arrest. And they arrested me. It was the first time I'd ever been arrested for anything. It was to shut me up and shut me down. And guess which judge this went to? Of course it went to Judge Gerald Warren again. And he again committed crimes. So I will talk tomorrow about what the FBI was doing at that time, that I was then asking more insistently for the FOIA, what the police were doing at the time, and then how I ended up in jail for 14 days. I mean, I was in jail for 14 days on a misdemeanor charge. It was the first time I'd ever been to jail. Most people on a misdemeanor thing get released after one day. They held me in solitary confinement for 14 days. And it was a false arrest. They had no evidence to support it. And I was pregnant. So, and this all went to the same judge that was doing these horrible things to me. So this was like a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. And I will talk about the false arrest and the response of the FBI and the police and what's going on tomorrow. So, thank you for your time, and I hope that all of you are well wherever you may be. And I really hope that somebody who sees this will know which person might know who to maybe get involved in taking a closer look at this, because I really don't know who to involve at this point. I've tried to involve any kind of agency or oversight group that I can think of, and it seems to me that every single time it's being handled with criminal kid gloves and being directed to the people that someone knows will shut it down and make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it's always ending up in the hands of somebody who will bury it, make me look crazy, or who has a supervisor that will shut it down. So I basically, the amount of damages that were incurred by blocking my travel from an illegal suspension of license, the damages were excessive. And they accrued. They've been ongoing, and they have accrued over time. I absolutely know that I deserve compensation for this by the parties responsible. And because I deserve compensation, the Washington Judicial Committee is doing a bunch of really criminal favors for judges that they know have committed crimes. And this is only the second judge that committed crimes, because then more judges decided, well, if those guys can do what they did, then we can too. And it got worse. So that's what I have for tonight, or today and tonight, September 19th.